So games cost over $1,000, spaces are so tight that you can barely breathe and don't even think about speaking English to the sellers here. Wait, is retro game hunting in Tokyo overrated? Absolutely not. I recently traveled to Tokyo to see for myself if retro game hunting in Japan's capital would live up to my expectations or leave me disappointed. And guess what? I'm much closer to the first scenario. Retro game hunting in Japan has been a dream of mine ever since I got back into collecting, and I was far from disappointed with what I found in Tokyo's stores. But this video isn't going to be all praise and optimism. I'm going to give you a clear-eyed view of what retro game stores in Tokyo are really like, broken down into 8 key points. The stores worth visiting, and just so you know, I stuck to Akihabara. My impressions of game prices, the variety of games and consoles on offer, the condition of the products, the challenges of narrow spaces and high temperatures, communication barriers with the sellers, tips for making your retro game hunt in Tokyo smoother, how to prepare, how to find games for less, and how to pack them safely for the trip home. And the most important point, how to approach and how not to approach retro game hunting in Tokyo. Together with my partner, we decided to stay in Akihabara, and I absolutely do not regret it. This is a true geek's paradise. Within a 10 to 15 minute walking radius, I had access to not only the best game stores, but also figure shops, Pokemon card stores, arcades, and the biggest discount store I've ever seen, Don Quixote, open 24/7. We stayed at the APA Hotel, which offered a minimalist room, but since we're the type of travelers who only use hotels to sleep, it suited us perfectly. In Akihabara, I visited the following stores: Trader, Book Off, Hard Off, Surugaya, Super Potato. I didn't have unlimited time, as we were traveling with our almost 2-year-old daughter, but I can confidently say that if you have a week, you'll have plenty of time to enjoy retro game hunting in these shops. Let me give you a breakdown of each. Trader. Trader is a well-known chain of game stores in Tokyo, with several locations scattered throughout the city. They focus on both new and used games, but what sets them apart is their impressive selection of older titles, especially for consoles like the Game Boy and PlayStation. You'll often find complete boxed editions of games, which is a huge draw for collectors. There are 2 Trader locations close to each other in Akihabara, one smaller and the other larger with multiple floors. The bigger store offers more than just games. It also has limited edition consoles, both retro and modern, as well as a large selection of PlayStation 1 games. Book Off. Book Off is a popular secondhand store chain in Japan that specializes in books, but they also sell video games, DVDs, and other media. There are numerous Book Off stores across Tokyo, and each location varies in the type of stock they carry. Some are better for books, while others focus more on games. The one I visited had an incredible selection of PlayStation Vita and PlayStation 1 games, which was perfect for expanding my collection. My basket was quickly filled with great finds. The store also offers tax-free shopping, which is a big bonus. Although I was hoping for a bigger selection of consoles, I might have just been unlucky on that front. Hard Off. Hard Off is the sister store of Book Off, but while Book Off focuses more on books and media, Hard Off is where you go for vintage hardware. You'll find a huge variety of retro consoles, old Sony camcorders, and vintage audio equipment. It's a store where you can just browse for hours, even if you don't buy anything. It's like a mini museum. If you're feeling lucky, check out their junk section. I managed to score a cheap PlayStation 1 memory card there. Keep in mind that items in this section aren't guaranteed to work, but with prices that low, it's often worth the risk. Surugaya. Surugaya is a bit of a hidden gem. It's a chain with 2 locations in Akihabara, and while one might not seem that impressive at first, both stores are very close to each other, and together they offer a treasure trove of retro games and accessories. One of the things I appreciated most was their range of game controllers and Game Boy Advance titles. Despite the language barrier, the staff was very helpful, especially since I was shopping with my child in a carrier and had white noise playing to keep her calm, making me look a bit alien. I was also shopping right before closing time, but the employee was kind enough to help me find what I was looking for. On top of that, they offered tax-free shopping, making it even better. And here's a funny story. At first, I accidentally walked into the wrong Surugaya store and wandered onto a floor full of adult games. Among the titles I'd rather not mention because of YouTube's policy, I stumbled upon a big box edition of Lego Racers for PC in pristine condition. Sometimes it's worth checking out the unexpected places. Super Potato. Super Potato is a must-visit for any retro game collector. The Akihabara location spans 2 floors packed with amazing games, plus 1 floor dedicated to arcade games. The displays are incredible, with old TVs hooked up to retro consoles giving you a nostalgic trip through gaming history. It's like a paradise for retro gaming enthusiasts. However, there's one thing you should be aware of: the prices. You'll find extremely rare titles with 4-digit price tags. For example, I came across a copy of The Jetsons for the NES, which was priced at $1,160. Even some less rare Game Boys are priced higher than what you'd expect to pay in Japan. I recommend treating this store like a museum, where you can soak in the atmosphere and appreciate the effort the staff puts into maintaining this retro gaming haven. At the same time, I think it's worth supporting them by buying at least 1 or 2 things from your wish list, or just have fun playing a few arcade games on the top floor. This place will leave you with unforgettable memories for the rest of your gaming life. The prices of games and consoles in Tokyo are mixed. Some shops stick to market prices while others price their games quite high. There are also thrift stores where you can find well-known games for a quarter of the price. A lot depends on your luck and how much time you have. Keep in mind that the more expensive stores cater to a specific target of collectors, like those who collect Neo Geo titles. These are people who understand exactly why some titles have 6-figure price tags. As a side note, I had the impression that Nintendo Switch games here are cheaper than in Europe. We regularly strolled through electronics malls packed with modern physical releases, and if I understood correctly, these were new games, often available with tax-free options. Not bad for someone living in Europe. Soon, you'll see that I encountered both great deals and slightly inflated prices. However, I want to make it clear that in both cases, I was satisfied. My priority in Tokyo was to have fun and experience a new culture. If I happened to save money on a game, that was great. But let's not forget I had to buy plane tickets, pay for the hotel, and on the way back, we even bought a second suitcase to fit everything. So, am I really saving money in the end? That's a good question. One example that really opened my eyes to how I wanted my retro game hunting in Japan to be was when I bought a PlayStation 1 console at Super Potato. A friend of mine, who's a seller, told me that NTSCJ consoles like this one often go for $90 to $100 in Europe, and there isn't always demand for them. Did I let that bother me? Absolutely not. The entire museum-like experience of walking through Super Potato, surrounded by retro gamer displays and old CRT TVs, was so amazing that I didn't mind spending a bit more on my favorite console. Besides, 10 years from now, when I look at that grey beauty in my game room, I'll be reminded of my wonderful trip to Tokyo. To me, that's worth paying a few extra dollars, especially since the store doesn't charge you for exploring all 3 floors, which, trust me, feels better than many actual gaming museums. On the other hand, you've also got stores specializing in second-hand products with a more basic, toned-down design, no flashy displays, but their shelves contain items at far more attractive prices than the market. As for my other purchases, I checked to see if their prices matched the market, or at least what price charting says. Let's take a look. One more thing to mention. At Super Potato, I picked up 2 PlayStation 1 collector catalogs, paying $18 each. From what I've seen online, these catalogs go for anywhere from $30 to $50, so if you want to find something below market price at Super Potato, keep an eye out for reading material. The numbers clearly show that the financial winner among Tokyo's retro shops is Book Off. The games are of great quality, and they can cost several times less than price charting would suggest. However, remember that while you may not find deals at places like Super Potato, they offer a lot more than just a shopping experience. You'll feel like a kid in a toy store, and that's exactly how I'd approach this adventure. As for the other titles that might interest you, compare them to your local market. While filming, I tried to capture the prices of all the games, consoles, and accessories I browsed. My focus was mainly on retro games, but titles for PS4, PS5, and Nintendo Switch also popped up from time to time. In short, prices in Tokyo range from cheap to expensive, depending on what you're after. If you're a collector of rare Neo Geo games, be ready to open your wallet and sharpen your Instagram game. But if you're just looking to fill your IKEA shelves with some secondhand gems, there are plenty of stores, and you're bound to find deals if you've got the time. In Japan, video games grow on trees, or at least that's how it feels when you're surrounded by pyramids of boxed consoles with complete contents. Almost every retro game store I stepped into had everything you could imagine: PlayStation, Sega, Nintendo, Xbox, Neo Geo, PC Engine, and even WonderSwan. You could create a mind map for each of these brands and chart out how much each store offered for every single one. Take Nintendo, for example. There's an abundance of Virtual Boy games, and at Super Potato, entire shelves are dedicated exclusively to the Famicom Disk System. I've also never seen as many Game & Watch systems in one place as I did in Tokyo. The same goes for consoles. If you dream of owning a Sega Mega Drive or Sega Dreamcast, there's no problem finding them. Just decide if you want the boxed version or not. The boxed ones cost a few thousand yen more, but if you're after a console in pristine condition, Japanese sellers know exactly how to preserve them. There are tons of accessories too: steering wheels, arcade sticks, keyboards, and my personal favorite, the peripherals for Densha de Go. Japan loves its trains, and next time I shop there, I plan to buy Densha de Go because I spent a lot of time playing it in arcades like Taito Station. Retro fans will find versions for PlayStation 1, while modern gamers can hunt down accessories and the game itself for Nintendo Switch. Many stores also offer things we rarely notice but are essential in any game room: cables, special converters, switches, or HDMI adapters, so you can enjoy retro gaming on newer TVs. If you want something more visually appealing for your setup, nearly every store has cool mascots, figures, mugs, and tons of other gaming merchandise. Just look at the awesome Famicom-themed tote bag I snagged. Super Potato, in my opinion, has the most extensive selection of consoles and games. Just check out their not-for-sale display. It perfectly showcases the rare gems you can find in Tokyo's retro scene. Japan is also a great place to buy handheld consoles, not just because you'll find rare models that aren't available outside Asia, but also because most retro handhelds are region-free and they're incredibly well preserved. Keep in mind, though, that these games are often in Japanese. So if you don't know the language and still want to play your Tokyo finds, focus on action games that don't rely heavily on text. I have a collection of platformers like Crash, Mario, and Kirby. NTSC-J editions also hold nostalgic value for me since I played a lot of Japanese releases in my childhood. I secretly dream of finding the time to learn Japanese and gradually grow my collection of Japanese games. But is wanting to replay my favorite games in Japanese enough motivation? Let me know what you think. And a quick note on the PS1 I bought. Remember that Europe has a different voltage system, so you'll need a voltage converter to use Japanese hardware. I recommend doing a little research before buying hardware in Japan to avoid any surprises. One thing I really appreciate about Japan is that all the games are priced and sealed. This means they stay in great condition while sitting on store shelves. If you're not interested in collecting complete in-box items, there are plenty of loose cartridges available, often in excellent condition. It's a budget-friendly way to collect. Loose cartridges are also easy to inspect with the naked eye. In contrast, boxed games are often sealed in plastic, so you'd have to ask the staff to open them if you want to assess their condition. At first glance, most things seem to be in great shape, though you might occasionally come across some minor wear, like a few scratches on boxes, frayed cardboard edges, or missing obi strips. The obi strip is tricky because while some sellers leave it outside the packaging, others throw it away or tuck it inside, making it hard to know if it's complete right away. Eventually, I made peace with not having an obi strip in every game I buy. After returning from Japan, I decided to document the condition of my retro finds. For my PS1 games, their condition ranges from good plus to very good, and I'm totally fine with that at the given price points. I was particularly surprised by the condition of Dead or Alive, which was much better than I expected for such a low price. There had to be a catch, right? The boxes show signs of use like sticker residue or minor scratches, but the discs are nearly flawless. In most cases, the discs look perfect with only a few light scratches or dust, almost as if the previous owners used the boxes more than the games themselves. I'll also admit to a bit of a controversial purchase. I bought Crash Bandicoot 3 for PS1 at a suspiciously low price because, in my fatigue, I didn't notice the obvious issue. I got my Dream Crash, but in 2 pieces. The hinges on the case were cracked. Interestingly enough, the manual and disc were in pristine condition, so I've already got a sneaky plan to replace the case and end up with a mint copy on my shelf. As for my LEGO Racers big box, it had a small dent on the front, but I suspect that might have happened in my hotel room, so I'll take the blame for that. The rest of the contents were mint. The Game Boy Advance games were pure perfection, and I'm just as happy with them as I was during my retro game hunt in Seoul. I'm shocked at how well the Japanese managed to keep 20-year-old cardboard boxes in such great condition. My Mario for Game Boy shows a bit of wear on the box and manual, and the cartridge has slightly yellowed on the back. But given that it's over 30 years old, I still think it's in fantastic condition. Don't you agree? Now let's talk about the console. Big props to Super Potato. The gray is still as gray as it should be, the controller works perfectly, and it came with all the necessary cables and manuals. I was really impressed by the condition of the box as well. I'm not usually one for hoarding cardboard boxes, but for the PS1 I made an exception in order to proudly display it in my game room. As you can see, the condition of games and consoles in Japan is exceptional. The Japanese really know how to take care of what they own, which you notice just walking around Tokyo. However, be cautious when a game seems too cheap. Always inspect the box carefully, and if needed, ask the seller to help you assess the condition. After all, you're spending your hard-earned money, so it's wise to spend it well. If you're traveling to Japan for the first time, there are 3 important things you should be aware of. These are not often highlighted in videos or by other people. First off, nearly every store is cramped, warm, and crowded. Hunting for games in Tokyo with a sleeping child in a carrier was a real challenge for me. I would start sweating within minutes of entering a shop, and it often felt like there was no fresh air. Any ventilation that existed seemed to be focused around the counter, likely to keep the staff comfortable during long shifts. Japan embraces minimalism. Our hotel room was basically a bed and a bathroom, and we found the same compact spaces in restaurants, convenience stores, and tourist attractions. You have to understand that in Tokyo, spaces are small but maximized to their full potential. Game shops are no exception. It was quite a feat trying to film inside Super Potato, especially since I went on a weekend, and it's a popular tourist spot. Not just among game collectors. I constantly had to stop, let people pass, or wait for someone to finish browsing a shelf. This is not an ideal activity for those who get easily overwhelmed by small spaces. I also remember the tiny elevator at Hard Off, where I could barely fit with the stroller. Honestly, game hunting with a young child should be an Olympic event in itself. So, how do you handle these challenges? Before entering any store, make sure you have a bottle of water. It's easy to forget to hydrate when the excitement of seeing your favorite games kicks in, but not drinking enough increases the risk of feeling faint. If you plan to spend a lot of time in one shop, take breaks. Step outside for some fresh air and walk around the building. As for the crowds, try to go during off-peak hours. If you visit game shops on weekdays, especially in the morning, you'll at least avoid most of the local Japanese collectors, who are likely at work. I also suggest wearing clothes that are easy to take off and avoid carrying bulky backpacks, as it's easy to accidentally bump into people or worse, knock into a game display. And don't forget to enjoy a delicious warm bowl of ramen to keep your energy up for your retro game hunt. The Japanese are very polite people, so shopping in Tokyo was generally a pleasant experience. However, there's something important you need to be aware of. People don't speak English, and it's not like you can get by with a few simple words. Many don't speak English at all. Even if you assume that sometimes you might get lucky, I strongly recommend preparing yourself for the reality that communication can be a significant challenge. It was difficult at times for me to ask specific questions, like whether all the contents were included in a console box, whether the store had a certain game from my list, or if the memory card I bought was functional. Most signs and labels are in Japanese as well. In a store like Hard Off, you won't immediately know which floor has the games and which has the figurines. In this situation, you need to be very resourceful and adaptable, and have a solid strategy. I recommend arming yourself with 2 tools, ChatGPT and Google Lens. I used the former in about 90% of cases, and it worked flawlessly. Sometimes I would take a photo of a notice or sign in a store and then ask the AI to translate it for me. I also asked ChatGPT to translate text from English to Japanese so that the store clerk could understand what I was asking about. Google Lens, on the other hand, was great for translating floor categories. Taking photos with this app became a habit before getting into any elevator. Otherwise, I'd have been searching for what I wanted blindly. These apps were also handy when browsing games. Sometimes I wasn't sure which exact title I was looking at, so by taking a picture and sending it to the app, I could quickly verify it or check its market price online. I love how modern technology can enhance the retro gaming hobby. Of course, these apps require an internet connection to function. I recommend getting a portable Wi-Fi router. I rented one at the airport through Ninja Wi-Fi, which cost me about $10 a day. The battery lasted all day, and combined with AI tools, it made everyday communication much easier, not to mention helping with navigation. I remember that the companies selling these routers often tried to upsell me on special real-time translation devices. These gadgets allow two people to speak in their native languages, while the device translates for the other person. It's a neat idea, and we did see it being used by others at a few restaurants, but we didn't buy one, as we felt the router was sufficient. So, if you don't plan on learning Japanese before your trip to Tokyo, make sure to prepare your survival kit: a phone with a good battery, a power bank, a portable Wi-Fi router, ChatGPT, the free version should be enough, and Google Lens. Throughout the video, I've already shared several tips that will definitely improve your retro game hunting experience in Tokyo, but let me add a few more pointers. Make sure to note them down, as they'll help you save money and ensure your games stay in good condition. Always carry your passport. This will allow you to make tax-free purchases if you spend a minimum of 5,000 yen. You'll be surprised at how many stores offer this option and how much you can save. Not every place in Tokyo accepts mobile payments, so be sure to carry either cash or a physical payment card. Create a list of the games and consoles you want to buy. While you don't have to stick strictly to it, feel free to buy any interesting games you come across. It's important to have a guide. In Japan, you'll constantly be overwhelmed by the sheer amount of games around you, so it's good to have a strategy. I not only recommend making a list, but also asking ChatGPT to translate the titles into Japanese and organize them alphabetically. You can show this list to the store staff to help them find the games for you. I remember at Surugaya, the clerk saw my list and went to the back of the store on an upper floor to retrieve the games for me. I could have spent hours searching for them, but all I had to do was ask. This will save you a ton of time because, trust me, if you can't read Japanese, it'll be very hard to find the exact games you're after. The only clue you'll get on the side of the box is the publisher's name, like Namco or Konami. But remember, both companies have released hundreds of titles. If you know which platform you want to buy games for, buy protective cases ahead of time. They don't take up much space in your suitcase, so they're easy to pack. Whether you buy 10 jewel cases or cardboard boxes, you'll be able to secure them for the journey home. Pack your games in your clothes. Thick jackets, sweaters, anything that provides good cushioning for your retro treasures will work. Keep in mind that airport staff won't handle your games with care, and your suitcase will be tossed around multiple times. So think carefully if you plan to buy sealed games whose condition is very important to you. Also, try not to leave empty spaces in your suitcase. If you end up needing to buy an extra suitcase because you bought too many games, Don Quixote is a great option. They have an entire floor full of suitcases from brands like American Tourister and Samsonite. Don't set high expectations for the Nintendo store in Tokyo. It's usually packed with people, and honestly, I found a much better selection of merchandise at the Nintendo store in New York. I circled the store about 10 times and ended up with just a plush toy and a t-shirt. Speaking of which, the t-shirt wasn't cheap. One nice thing though was that they added points to your Nintendo account for your purchases. If you're planning to visit a game-themed cafe like Kirby Cafe, remember that you'll need to make an online reservation in advance, sometimes as early as a month before. These cafes have unique merchandise that you won't find anywhere else, and the food is worth an Instagram post or two. In Japan, you'll easily find decorations for your game room, especially figurines. In Akihabara, figurine stores are on almost every corner. I bought my first Gundam at Don Quixote for just a few dollars, and I even passed by a guy who was selling off his entire collection of figurines at super low prices. If you're into this kind of stuff, set aside some extra budget. Make sure to list all the places you want to visit before your trip. We usually create a list of saved spots in Google Maps. It's the simplest option, and it shows us on the map where these places are in relation to our current location. It also helps us see how far they are from our hotel, so we can plan for the next day. If you'd like, leave a comment, and I'll share my Google Maps list of game stores in Tokyo. If you collect games, figurines, read manga, or love Pokemon cards, your time in Tokyo will be amazing, especially if you choose to stay in Akihabara. My strategy for retro game hunting in Japan can be summed up in 3 words: just have fun. Don't overthink whether a game is in exactly the condition you imagined, whether it's priced at the perfect market value, or if the merch could be cheaper elsewhere. Just decide how much you're willing to spend on your hobby, then let yourself get swept away by the magic of Tokyo, like a kid in a massive toy store. In Japan, you'll find plenty of affordable games, which makes it easy to build up your collection and fill your game room. If you're a connoisseur of rare titles, you'll also find some high-end treasures. In short, there's something for everyone. I've seen plenty of people who were just getting back into retro gaming, hunting for their first Game Boy after years. All the shops I've mentioned attract people united by nostalgia and a deep passion for games. Okay, some may have stumbled into those shops while their main intention was to visit a floor dedicated to adult products, but that's just part of the charm. Oh, and don't forget to weigh your suitcase at the hotel reception before heading to the airport. Is there something I didn't cover in the video? Drop me a comment, and make sure to watch my other video where I document retro game hunting in Seoul.